Missouri was well known for grape and wine production before Prohibition. It's been a long road back, but the industry is rebounding and producing award-winning wines. Next on Show Me Ag. Welcome to Show Me Ag. I'm your host, Kyle Vickers. The grape and wine industry has a long history in Missouri as European immigrants brought their skills with them to the New World. In the modern era, those same families and many more are bringing back grape production, and wineries are springing up all over Missouri. It's not only viticulture, but it's also adding value to farm production and bringing tourism to rural areas. We have as our guest Jim Anderson, the Executive Director of the Missouri Wine and Grape Board. Jim, this has been a phenomenal thing really over the past, you said you've been with the organization about 20 years.
About 20 years, and when 20 years ago, we had about 30 wineries in the state of Missouri, and now we have over 130 wineries in the state of Missouri. So the growth, not just in Missouri, but we've seen that across the United States. Just the U.S. alone, we went from, in the last 20 years, from 2,500 wineries in the United States to over 8,000 wineries across the country.
And in Missouri, we've had a big jump in the acres of grapes as well as the production of wine.
That's correct. Presently, we're at 1,700 acres of grapes, and them almost primarily being used for wine production in the state of Missouri.
And what's fascinating to me is a few years ago, it seemed like it was very regional, kind of outside that St. Louis area, but it's spread out all across the state, hasn't it?
We have. We see a lot of growth in Missouri, but primarily we're starting to see new growth towards Springfield, Missouri, in that area. We've seen it in the Kansas City area, going up to St. Joe and past St. Joseph, Missouri, and then also around the Cape Girardeau up to St. Genevieve region. So we're starting to see this diversity of the area of growing grapes, but also wineries.
And around those regional centers where people can get out of town and go out and visit the winery and have a good time. It adds a lot to the tourism dollars, doesn't it?
That is correct. The wine industry is kind of unique in a way. It's kind of an economic driver or a tourism cluster, we call it, because when a winery starts, you start seeing a winery or two. You will also see B&Bs, craft antique shops, also hopefully other agricultural operations. And so you have this kind of tourism cluster that starts. And so we've been very proud to see almost 1 million people hitting Missouri wineries every year, venturing out, taking them day trips, and staying at B&Bs and keep their money in Missouri instead of leaving the state.
Well, one of the best known here in mid-Missouri, Jim, is at Waverly, Missouri, where the Baltimore Bend Vineyards, a family operation in business since 1997, has set up shop.
Back in 1997, I had just moved back to the area and was talking to my parents about what a cool thing it would be to grow some grapes. And sure enough, I kind of tapped into a passion and an interest they had all their lives. They had acreage, about 120 acres, that was in corn and soybean kind of rotation, and we did a soil test. We had the University of Missouri come out and do a soil test, and really great soils for fruit production. The Waverly area has a ton of apple trees and peach trees. This is really good soil for that kind of crop. So the grapes have done really well. So we started with about an acre, just over an acre, and we have grown in those first several years. We went up to 3 and 5 acres. We're now at 7 acres. So I don't know, 18 years in, 7 acres, with probably 8 or 9 different varieties. We are right next to the Missouri River. We're just about a mile south here where our vineyard is. But this is known for the kind of the southern edge of the glacial. So when the glaciers started to retract, this deposited some deep silt loam and loess soil. So it's really deep topsoils, which the grapes love, but it's just really rich in nutrient, and the grapes really do thrive. They're very vigorous growing in the soils we have here.
It's our best-selling red wine.
We offer here at Baltimore Bend 20 different varieties, and we have a couple seasonal, so up to 22 at different times of the year. We grow some of the popular wines. The state grape of Missouri is called the Norton grape, and we do offer a Norton. It's typically a deep, dry red. We do an oak-aged Norton here, but we also have it in a blend, a little lighter style. So it's fairly popular on the drier side. We also offer, several semi-sweets, kind of in the semi-sweet category, to trying to appeal to all the different palates that are out there in the world. And we have some sweet wines too. We have a couple fruit wines. We of course have a peach wine and a apple wine because we are in peach and apple country. We have a blackberry wine also. I would say our sweet red, our Concord, is our most popular. And I think the Concord is a grape variety that people are just familiar with. It's a nice starting off wine for a lot of people that haven't tried wine. Everybody kind of has a connection to it, either through grandma, growing Concord grapes and making their own wine, or juice in the backyard, or whatever the case may be. People have found a liking for the Arrowhead Red. I am a certified enologist. I went through a 2-year course through Washington State University to earn a certificate. It was kind of an intense hands-on and distance learning kind of program. But in the vineyard itself, we do a lot of conferences. We have extension come out, a lot of reading. So that mostly is self-taught, but also with a lot of help from the experts at the university and through extension that do know what's going on and can guide us and help us.
Is that what you were doing?
I think in Missouri we have one of the most collaborative industries throughout the United States. I've heard of some other states that don't get along that well, a lot of competition, and there is competition, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're all kind of fighting for the market share and the dollars, but at the same sense, we're all close enough and are going through the same thing that we are supportive of each other. And I think that comes from the top down. There have been a lot of the bigger wineries that have opened their doors and, accepting phone calls from us smaller guys, helping us figure out what's going on either in the vineyard or if we have a problem in the winery or what the case may be. So we do work a lot with a lot of the other vineyards and wineries throughout the state. We've expanded personnel-wise. My brother has joined the business in the last 3 years. So we have really added another channel to the business in addition to just retail, offering consumers wine tasting at our winery. We are really knee-deep and even deeper into the wholesale arena, which is grocery stores and liquor stores, and offering our wines around the state in the convenience where people want to find them, in their Hy-Vees and Price Choppers, and of course their mom and pop liquor stores also. So that's been a huge part of our business growth, but also continuing to offer music and events and barrel tastings to bring people out to our lovely part of Lafayette County so they can see what our lives are like here, and continuing economic development in the rural area. We have also increased our production just to satisfy the consumers that are coming here, but also the consumers that are buying at retail. So that's been a big piece. We are kind of looking at trying to expand the facility now in some fashion. So we're kind of looking at different ideas of how that might look in the future. The state in itself has grown. When we got into the wine business in 2003, we were probably the 54th, 55th winery in the state. 13 years later, which is where we are now in 2016, there are over 130 wineries. So there's just been an explosion in the wine industry. And I think that wine is very trendy. A lot of people experimenting, trying it, working it in their beverage mix. So I think that does play into it, and I think the grow local, buy local, support local. People want to know where their food is coming from, but also their beverages, and I think that really does play into it too.
Baltimore Bend's tasting room is open year-round, and if you'd like to learn more about their wine or some of their special events they hold there, you can visit them at the link below. Jim, this is a phenomenal story. Let's go back here. I mentioned in the introduction that before Prohibition, we were huge in the production, and then dead for a while, and then it's gradually come back. Tell us a little bit about that history.
Yeah, it's exciting history. At the turn of the century, in 1900, Missouri was probably the #2 state in the nation behind New York, and then continuing to grow, and then of course Prohibition hit. 1919, 1920, the industry pretty much goes dormant until 1934, and really because of the replanting, because of the Depression, most of our vintners looked at different sources, more traditional ag, and so we started seeing this growth starting about the late 60s. The Held family, the Hofer family out of St. James, and also the Dress Russell family out of the Augusta area started reopening these wineries that were really vacated. Stonehill was one of the second largest wineries in the United States.
In Herman.
And of course, the also in Augusta, the Augusta winery was quite large as far as Mount Pleasant, and continues to grow as we speak. But this whole growth industry has been taking place with Missouri wineries and across the nation. And presently, right now, we're about a $1.76 billion industry in the state of Missouri. So it's something to be excited about.
If I remember right, there's some story about us helping the French with their grapes at one point in time.
That's correct. In the 1880s, it's really a louse, a phylloxera, that attacked the vineyards in France and parts of Italy. And so scientists from the University of Missouri, Charles Riley, but other ones also out of Texas, really started putting together cuttings in the late 1800s to send to the French government, because we really found that our American grapes, that our Norton grapes and some of our other grape varieties were really immune to the phylloxera. And so they were sent, I guess, on boxcars to the coast and shipped over, and they were grafted onto Missouri roots. Also, too, California kind of got its start in the late 1800s, early 1900s on a lot of Missouri grape stock.
So the grape stock is really pretty much the same. The climate, I know California, of course, is probably our biggest state for wine production, and they've got some really ideal situations there, and yet some challenges. I'm sure that's true in Missouri as well. Weather is probably as variable here as it is anywhere in the country.
That's correct. Growing fruit in the Midwest is challenging, and but we work with our friends in California in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They have some challenges too, water problems and concerns with land and soil. But something we're excited about with our pride is in 1980, when the Trade and Tax Bureau, the TTB, started looking at appellations that we see in, of course, in Europe, especially in France and Italy, is that in 1980, the Augusta was the first appellation named in the United States, in Augusta, Missouri. And Napa and Sonoma followed shortly after that. So we did beat California to the punch on that.
So, and nowadays, of course, as it's spread across the state, what kind of climate do they need? I know there are some very specific requirements. She mentioned the really good soil that they have at Waverly, but I know in South Missouri, not necessarily great deep soils, but very good grape growing areas.
Yeah, the state of Missouri, I think, for soils, of course, when we had this rich heritage in the 1840s, 1850s, when settlers came in, the Germans in the Herman area, the Italians in the Rosati, St. James area, and of course the French in the St. Genevieve area. And they were looking at these river soils. They were very deep. But then as you got into the Ozark areas, the thinner soils. But on grapes, you do want a little stress on the plant. You want it to be able to produce grapes, not so much leaves and vines in a sense. And the main thing with grapes is the drainage situation. You want to be on a high area, on a ridge hillside, so that cold air can drain. And the challenges for us here in the Midwest is late frost and air movement, of course, rainfall at the wrong time, high humidity, so it does produce some disease pressures where you would not see that in California when they're getting 2 or 3 inches of rainfall a year in parts of California.
Well, like much of agriculture, all weather dependent and a lot of risk to it as well. I know there's been some incentives. Part of this growth has come, great organization, but the legislature has really helped and stepped in. There's some incentives now for grape production.
That's correct. We've really looked at partnerships. When we started looking back in the 1960s, and the program was formed in 1984. The industry really came to the Department of Agriculture, needed help, and the Department of Ag really reached out and starting to work with the grape growers and wine producers in the state. So they did form an advisory board in 1984. In 2006, we made it a really what we call a full-time board, that it was a governor-appointed, Senate-approved board, and we started reaching out to partners. We work with Missouri State University, where they've done a lot of research for us, but at the same time, in the last 8 years, we've also worked with the University of Missouri, being a land-grant university, the extension programs out there that we can go out and reach and help these growers produce quality grapes, but also make quality wine, and I think that's where it really starts at. But the legislature has been a great partner. We talk about partners in government with our friends at Department of Tourism and Ag, but also too we talk about our friends at the legislature, where they did look at tax credit programs in 1999 and to help some of these grape growers, because when you start in this business, you're looking at about $5,000 to $15,000 an acre for startup on a vineyard. Now, you're not going to be producing grapes in Missouri for about 3 to 5 years. You're hoping to keep them grapes for the next 30 years before you'll have to take them out when they're in their, what I call, they're starting to decline. And so the cost there is
big startup cost.
Big startup cost.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I want to mention Missouri State.
Yeah.
A fruit experiment station is an arm of Missouri State, and it's clear down in South Missouri, Mountain Grove, Missouri.
That's correct. You know, and that has a rich heritage. It was working with fruit producers at the turn of the century, because that was really kind of a hub there for vegetables and specialty crops and large fruit. And it's been unique working with them because of, you know, that history and working with us on some of our grape varietals. But then, you know, working with the land grant with the University of Missouri, where we do have that extension support, the horticulture specialists out there in the state of Missouri. And as the wine industry continues to grow with 1,700 acres in a lot of counties, it's nice to be able to have them horticulture specialists in the state to out there support these growers.
So the first step is getting the grapes grown and produced, and all the challenges that go with any kind of agricultural production. But making of wine is not simple, and it's a science, it's a skill, but it's also an art, isn't it?
It's all the above. And every year the conditions change in the Missouri and parts of the Midwest to make these fine wines. And I think far as a grower you are. You're part artist, you're part chemist, and you're kind of doing all the things to make these quality wines out there.
So is there help for that too? She mentioned, Schmidt, I believe it is, mentioned that she had been to a school and learned how. Is there help for that? Do people wanting to start in, try some wine?
It's correct. Through the Wine and Grape Board, we do have a program through the University of Missouri. We do have viticulturists on staff and enologists. The enologists would go out there and work with the commercial wineries in the state, the 130 wineries, but also we try to stay active in a lot of different workshops to invite these wineries and grape growers in, try to keep them on top of weather conditions, on insect problems, fungus disease pressures that are out there. The best to be a prevent mode, not post, and we've been seeing that with these partners out there.
I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I have some friends who are kind of wine snobs a little bit, and they used to make fun of Missouri wine, but gosh, Missouri wines have been winning awards and doing very well in competitions.
That's correct, and that's what you have to do. You have to go out there and beat these other wineries in competition. You'll see wine pretty much done in wine competitions, or you will see point systems at the grocery store level. And for us in Missouri and for a lot of other states, that being New York or Texas or Michigan, you'll see them very active in trying to have wines entered in competitions. There's a number of competitions, close to 25 national, international competitions in the United States. And so a lot of our wineries are very active in that. And out there, you have to go out there and win the golds and double golds out there. And it's something we're very proud of when Missouri Winery does bring home gold or silver medals back to Missouri.
And they've been doing that on a regular basis.
They have, and it's exciting. In fact, in Missouri, we do have our own Missouri wine competition. We do that in mid-July. We kind of unveil that at the Missouri State Fair and highlight the Missouri wines. And so it's kind of a bragging right in Missouri about who's going to win that Governor's Cup.
So once the wine is made, the exciting thing to me and what's fun is to go out and visit some of these wineries. They typically have food and tastings and all kinds of events throughout the year. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that are going on.
There's a lot of exciting things. What we've done in Missouri the last a number of years, there's been wine trails that popped up. We have 10 Missouri wine trails. So these wineries have really band together to go out there and do certain promotions certain times a year to draw these consumers in. And they're working with also local businesses, that being the chamber or the B&Bs or hotels in the region, to highlight that region and really promote that area. And so a number of events from MyFest celebrations in Herman to barbecues to chocolate events to biking, you name it, the wineries are staying active. And now more and more of them also are adding another venue where they're also doing a lot of wedding and special events. A lot of millennials now are looking at wineries, wanting to come out and celebrate, have their wedding or special events out there. So the wineries are kind of moving in that direction now of that type of entertainment.
We've been to several family weddings in the past couple of years where it's out in a barn or a shed somewhere, but usually some wine associated with that. You mentioned wine trails. families can spend a weekend, go out and maybe stay all night in a B&B and visit several of these wineries. How can we find those trails?
Well, they can primarily just go to our website, MissouriWines.org, and go to our website and download that. Also, too, we have a free brochure listing our Missouri wineries, and we're glad to send that to consumers.
So what could a person expect? Are these expensive wines? Are they relatively inexpensive? Tell us where we're at.
Well, price points, and I feel Missouri wines are great value. You'll see some of those what I call sweeter style wines that are as low as $6 or $7 a bottle, up to your drier red wines that are going to be close to $15, $20, $25, especially some estate wine, late harvest style wines, or sparkling wines they may be doing. And at most of our wineries too, you're going to see a cross section from dry to sweet.
So a consumer can kind of choose and pick. It's not going to be $40 a bottle for everything.
Correct. All of our wineries, 130 plus wineries, do have tasting rooms, and I think that's important where consumers can come and try the different styles of wines and make that decision, and then get mixed cases if they choose to take home with them. So that almost 1 million people coming out and visiting us, we're wanting to, hopefully they'll come home with a case of wine.
I'll show you how little I know about wine. There's red wine and there's white wine. Does white wine come from white grapes?
Well, what you see is not necessarily. Most of the juice is always white. What you're seeing on red wines is going to be left on the skins. If it's a red grape variety, that they may leave it on the skins to produce that red wine over a time, and depending on if it's going to be a blush or a deep red wine. And so you're going to see a lot of different styles. In Missouri, we have about 13 main varieties, these being French and American hybrid grapes. And the Norton grape that we have here, and also the Vignoble grape, them are probably our two popular red and white wines that we do. And when I travel around the country, people want to know about these type of wines.
And Norton is our state grape, I believe.
Grape,
is that right?
Yeah. 2003 was our state grape, and it's something we're excited about. It has that rich heritage. It was really grown in the 1840s. It really made its way east or west from Virginia, and really did well here in the Midwest, especially here in Missouri. And I think our wineries over the years have really mastered that wine. So out of the 130 wineries, you're probably going to see close to about 60, 70 wineries in Missouri doing Norton. Then on the Vignoble, it's a French hybrid. You're going to see a lot of wineries doing that because it's our style. Best way to describe it is like a Riesling style. A lot of fruit, done and dried to semi-dry, even semi-sweet, or even late harvest style wine.
I know there's these individual events at these wineries across the state throughout the year, really. But I know your industry has some special events. You mentioned the state fair. You have a awards program or contest prior to the state fair, and then you have a wonderful wine garden at the state fair, a new addition over the past few years.
It has. We've been able to partner with a couple there that really run the Missouri Wines tent, and it's been great. They've been featuring Missouri wines and also Missouri beers, and we're starting to see that growth in craft brewing and distilling, and it's been a great partnership where we can go in and teach what we call one-on-one classes to educate people about wine and food. And we've been able to partner with our commodity groups too, so it's been great to see our beef and pork friends where we can talk about food and wine and educate consumers about that, and we feel the State Fair is a great place to do that at.
You have some tastings in Kansas City and St. Louis through the year?
Correct. We do a lot of events in Kansas City and St. Louis, and we try to be active throughout the state. We do a lot of different tastings, special events. We work a lot with the non-for-profits where we're going to go in and maybe do a tasting with them and educate people about wine. So my group stays pretty active on
And do you still have a big conference in the winter?
We do. We do partner. Now it's in St. Charles, Missouri. We also do one at the university, more geared for the growers, and but it's been unique because of this growth in craft brewing, distilling. So you see this trade show, this major conference, really talking about all the different type of spirits and wine and beers. So it's been exciting to see that growth out there.
One of the nicest and most elegant evenings that we've ever had was at a Grape and Wine conference where they paired the wines with different glasses as well as different foods. There's a lot of room to stretch out your knowledge. It's not just sitting at home and having a bottle of wine with supper. There's a lot of entertainment value.
There is. We want to expand the wine culture here in Missouri and the Midwest. And I think why people don't try or drink wines is they're very intimidated by wines. And so we try to do is make it fun and enjoyable for people to try it with their foods and enjoy it in a social outing, but just at home too. And I think with Missouri cuisines, our Missouri wines pair very good with Missouri pork or Missouri beef or even wild game that's here in the state of Missouri. So we've been able to go out there and show how our wines can be used in that everyday use of what we do for food.
Baltimore Bend folks talked about wanting to expand, wanting to add on. Is this kind of a general trend? People are excited and still saying, hey, there's still room for growth?
That's correct. And I think a lot of it's because the whole wine culture. What you're seeing because of the weddings, the special events, so people are thinking about adding that venue. But also, too, you're seeing folks that are looking at other ways to entertain people to come out, and people do. They want to know about agriculture. They want to know about how them grapes are grown, and less than 2% is involved in production agriculture now. So I think it's an important tool to bring people out and educate them about agriculture and grapes, and making wine is one piece of that.
Well, it's a great opportunity to keep some dollars in Missouri, and maybe bring some other folks to our state and enjoy the beauty of our state and enjoy some wine as well. Jim, thank you very much for being with us tonight, and to Sarah Schmidt and everyone at Baltimore Bend Vineyards for spending time with us as well. That's all the time we have for tonight, but before we go, we'd also like to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in to Show Me Ag. Be sure to tune in next time for another look at a topic touching rural Missouri. For everyone here at Cam West and myself, good night. We're also very interested in what you have to say, so if you have feedback you'd like to share with us, you can email us at showmeag@camos.org or find us on Facebook.